We are batchmates, and by now you know that he has been keeping secrets away from me. But
you can see the fondness I have for him.
J.S. Personnel in MEA is privy to many, many secrets, which he or she cannot share.
I only revealed 2 secrets, not more than that.
Yeah, but 2 in how many years?
Wait, in MEA? 2 secrets in 25, 26 years now.
That's what I said. Okay, but thank you for that. Now, my task is simple because my colleagues, my good friends have, narrated what happened, and they have narrated it not only brilliantly, but also truthfully. So I don't have to add much. But I want to start with the big picture. 2nd of August, the invasion took place. Now, it is wrong to think that on the 3rd of August, Government of India should have organized evacuation. No, it is wrong to think because there's no need. Let me explain. When the invasion occurred, naturally we had 2 concerns. One is the security and safety of our community there, and equally important, and linked with that this should not sort of escalate into a war. That was, the 2 concerns that we had. So Foreign Minister Gujral went to the United States. He spoke to his U.S. counterpart, Secretary General of the UN and others, but he realized that there will be a war and that there was need to evacuate our people. There were also the UN sanctions. So even if our people had remained there, they wouldn't have anything to eat. And don't forget, and this is very important, the Iraqi army was not doing any harm to the Indian population. There was no need to evacuate our people just because Iraqi army had come in. That is one thing. Now, about Gujral, Ambassador, but she told us about the big meeting he addressed. Now, I want to give you a little background. Is that when we landed up in Kuwait, our ambassador, Budiraja, and let me add, very correctly, he told us, sir, he told Minister Gujral, sir, there are about 4,000, 5,000 of our people there. They are in some Maidan and they are very angry, and I wouldn't advise you to go there. Maybe you can send IP Khosla and KP Fabian and maybe Ambassador Bakshino, but I wouldn't advise you to go there. He is correct in the sense that, as ambassador, he was responsible for Mr. Gujral's safety and security. But then we discussed it with Gujral, and he said, no, we are going there, we came to meet our people. And then these people were, very angry. But let me tell you, within 3 to 4 minutes, Mr. Gujral made them say, Bharat Mata ki Jai. Now, that is the politician at his best, the angry people. Another thing is that, his embrace of Saddam Hussein, about as much has been made out. Well, he went to meet Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein got up and came to embrace him. Now, can you tell him, listen, you are Saddam Hussein, I don't want to be embraced by you. No, this is nonsense. Now, all this came because, and we have to understand this, our media were heavily under American influence. They believed all that the Americans said. Okay. Now, the second point I want to say is that I got a phone call from our ambassador in Kuwait when it was about 3 to 3:30 Kuwaiti time, which shows that the ambassador in Kuwait was not sleeping, that he was alert. And throughout the period, the embassy and the ambassador, they were very, very alert. Now, coming to another phone call, and this is important. I got another phone call. I got many, but that's not the point. Is that this was from a man called KTB Menon. KTB Menon was the richest Indian in Kuwait, and he called me from London. Incidentally, you heard Pupinder Guman? Actually, both she and KTB Menon were in London, and she was not getting a ticket to go to Kuwait. But KTB Menon, for some reason, cancelled his ticket, and that is how Pupinder was able to get to Kuwait. Now, question is, did KTB Menon know something which others did not know? Possible. He had his high connections. Anyway, but what he told me was, Fabian, you can evacuate all the Indians in Kuwait. It's about 170,000 if you put Kuwait and Iraq together. And he said he does not make any distinction between those who were in Kuwait, those who were in Iraq. And these are his words, I will pay the entire amount. It was a blank check. So I thanked KTB. I said I might make use of it. But then I added, listen, as far as evacuation is concerned, once we decide on it, Government of India will take care of it, because that is our rule. You know, it is our duty to evacuate our people who are in travel. But KTB said it, and for me, you know, it was a very, very important phone call. Now, we came back, you know, Ratan has mentioned, you know, how we went to Amman and all that, you know. Then, as soon as Gujarat came back, you know, and suddenly that IL-76, there is a story that Gujarat picked up all the Punjabis in Kuwait and brought them. This is utter nonsense. He didn't do that. I had to prepare the list, and I was at the embassy. I got assistance from the embassy, though the embassy refused to give me any names because they said, you know, they had to continue to live there. So they didn't want anyone to think, you know, that they had not, you know, okay, understood. Yeah, understood. Then what happened was that Gujral was sitting there, and, you know, some street smart people from Delhi and around will go to him, and they will come to me later with their visiting card, 3 seats, signed I.K. Gujral. Now, I got the first 2 visiting cards. I told them, okay, fine, we will take care of you. When the 3rd one came, I got worried, and I told him, well, let me see. I'll do my best. After all, the minister has signed it. I'll do my best, but I can't assure you, but I'll do my best, and I'll give you a call. Well, as soon as he left me, I rushed to Mr. Gujral and, sir, this won't do. What won't do? I said, we can't be taking healthy-looking people, and especially those who come from a particular part of India. So what do you want? I said, we have to have it distributed. We want the Bengalis, we want the Gujaratis, we want the Malayalis, we want the Canaries. Okay, how do you want to do it? So I said, I'll call up the associations and ask them to give names. He said, fine. Then I asked her, but what about these people who are going to see you, because there was a long queue? So he asked me, what shall I do? I said, do one thing. You keep on signing, but it's understood between us that they won't be taken. He said, fine. So he signed more, and we didn't, you know. So that was what I... But one among them who had got his signature was a young man from Bangalore. You know, when at the hotel, Holiday Inn, when I was reading out the names, his name was not there. He came and got hold of me, and then he said, you know, here is your minister's signature. And then he said, you won't leave my hand. You know, he was shaking hands with me unless I took him. And I had to do play a trick, you know. As children, you know, what we used to do was that, you know, when somebody, you want to surprise somebody, the other kid, you say, hey, look up. There is some lizard or something is there. So this fellow looked up, and I really got my hand released. Anyway, so now what we did was that we had a cabinet subcommittee, which was chaired by Gujral. And that made all the difference. So eventually when Air India was asked to do that, there was no problem. Air India didn't ask, hey, are you going to pay us? How much will you pay us? Nothing. It was so smooth that I used to get a phone call from Amman, from the Air India manager, Manuel, whom you mentioned. And we had to keep our conversation very brief. So he used to say, good morning, 850. That meant 850 passengers were there, and we had to send the aircraft. Again, I just lifted up the racks, and Ganeshan was the Civil Aviation Secretary. Good morning, sir. 850. Yes, Fabian. End of the conversation. I didn't have to discuss how many aircraft he was going to send, but I could always be sure that aircraft will go on time. No need to check up. Now the question is, how did it happen? Initially, there was, at some levels, and let me mention that, Cabinet Secretary and Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, when K.P. Unnikrishnan mentioned, that we have to arrange for the evacuation, they raised the question of the cost. I mean, it was wrong. There's no question of, you can't discuss cost, how people have to be. And it was then that K.P. Unnikrishnan and Ganeshan very cleverly thought of getting these grounded Airbus 320 aircraft back into operation, because that's how it started. And once it started, of course, you can do many things. So that is how it happened. Even at the highest bureaucratic level, there was, what shall I say, the unnecessary thought of how do we pay for it, because external affairs regulations are very clear. If you are an Indian citizen stranded abroad, if you have a problem with your security, the government of India has to evacuate you. Now, Air India, of course, did a wonderful job, but I want to share something with you. Manuel once came to me when I was at the Amman Hotel, and it was sort of breakfast time, and he came with a very long face. So I asked him to have coffee. No, sir, no coffee. What happened? They walked out on me. Who? The crew, Air India crew. Why? Oh, they were waiting for the passengers for 3 hours, and not all the passengers had come in. So they walked out, saying that, if they start the flight, then they will be on duty for so many hours beyond the stipulated time. So they walked out. And then this poor man had to find food, accommodation for all these people. So he said I should speak to the crew. Now, I didn't have enough confidence to go to the crew, but I thought I would do something else. Firdaus Khargamwala was in the Foreign Service, 67, 68 batch. Now, he was earlier with the Hindu. He got disenchanted with the Foreign Service, so he went back to Hindu. And he was in Bahrain, covering the whole Gulf. So I called him, Firdaus, I wanted to carry a story about Air India. What's the story? Story is that Air India is doing its job magnificently. Here is a national crisis. Passengers come late, 1 hour late, 2 hours late, 7 hours late, but doesn't matter. Air India crew is there to receive them with a smile. They may have to be on duty for 10 hours, 15 hours, 18 hours at a stretch. They couldn't care less. And we all have to learn from Air India, those of us in the government and outsiders also. So Firdaus said, Fabian, is it true? So I said, Firdaus, if you carry the story now, it will be true tomorrow. He hummed and hawed. Then I said, let's solve the problem. You just quote me verbatim. After all, you are entitled to believe a Joint Secretary to Government of India. If you didn't double check, nobody can blame you. So he carried the story, and the next day, Manuel came to me with a big smile. Sir, no problem. What happened? Oh, there was a meeting of the crew and the guild of pilots and all that in Mumbai, and they said that there was media praise for Air India, so there will be no problem. So it's good to praise people. Now, have I got 2 more minutes?
No, there's time. There's no.
All right. 2
But
minutes.
anyway, go ahead.
2 minutes
I have
more.
no heart to stop.
Okay, 2 minutes more. One is that, how it all worked with the machinery. The Kuwait was and Iraq were under sanctions, and we had to send food. And we got permission from the United Nations, thanks to our PR flow. We are saying that, we can send food. And MV, merchant vessel Parashuraman. So we contacted Shipping Corporation of India, and they said this ship is there at Kochi, and they will wait there for 48 hours. If you can fill it with food, it will go straight. I called the chief secretary in Thiruvananthapuram, told him that, can you fill it up? Yes. Then he asked me, what sort of food? I said, listen, half the people in Kuwait are from Kerala, so you think of what the Malayali is like, but don't forget the other half also. Add whatever you think. And let me tell you, he did not ask me who will pay for it. I had to tell him, please, do me a favor, send me the bill once you have done it. Now, that was the coordination. You see, people trusted each other. Now, I'm going to end by saying that something about water. When we were in Amman, Unikrishnan and I, we went to the camps. And our people told them that they were not getting enough bottled water. Why? Well, there was a shortage, but there was an additional reason. The Filipino ladies were able to smile better with the Jordanian, security people. So they were getting all the bottles. Okay. I telephoned our ambassador. I don't find him here, but he was there. Ranjit Sethi, ambassador in Abu Dhabi. Had a chat. He said, no problem. So he spoke to his wife, and she was the president of the Indian Women's Association. And I tell you, within hours, the bottles of water came. Because one phone call and somebody local. So that was it. Now, last, I think it is a good idea to have history. In fact, I don't know whether MEA has done one. MOD did a history of the 1962 war, which was a disaster. Now, I don't see why we can't do a history of this evacuation, which was such a great success. Now, we should do it, and you have all the people concerned. They are still around, but don't wait for too long. So either the IIC can do it, or MEA can do it, or both can do it together. And thank you, Suhas, for thinking of it. But let me also say, Suhas did it because of the film. So we should thank the director of the film for bringing us together.